Hey, giving my literal worst viewed video on my channel a sequel. Dang, I spent way too long editing that one, but here we go again with the bro card. Hopping back on Dragon Ball Z, I'm here back with a series I'm basically just doing for myself at this point. What if Krillin became Earth's Guardian Part 2? Before I hop back to reviving my second channel again since it's been a couple months over there. Anyways, Patreon is up, like I mentioned during the last video. If you want to help a boy out, especially with a certain exclusive series that will be coming up soon, will probably be the next video on this channel. Alright, time to talk about the Dragon Ball character I relate to the most via height. This is part 2 of What If Krillin Became Kami, and I hope you enjoy the video. Returning back to this different timeline, we're welcome to the scene of some of the Z fighters looking up to Krillin, and especially Kami, for guidance on how they're gonna handle the whole incoming Saiyan invasion. Said Guardian though seems to be in deep telepathic conversation, like he himself had someone he had to report up to. Immediately, the Elder Namekian turns to the group announcing that he just got the blessing to send one of them up to the other world for training. King Kai, the overseer of the North Galaxy, or Northern Quadrant in different translations. While Goku seems to be the obvious candidate of undergoing the training, Saiyan genetics and all, everyone is surprised though when Krillin is the one commanded to go. Kami are elaborating that due to none of the Z fighters being actually dead right now, the only leeway of making any of them get this special training would require someone with a godly status. And with Krillin accidentally taking on the apprentice role in the last part, he just barely had the qualifications to be let in. The midget monk gulps loudly, still recovering mentally from that whole radish situation, but Goku goes over and slams his turtle school comrade behind the back, letting him know it's gonna be exciting training hard like they used to for the tournaments. Now with this, he'll be the one this time that needs to catch up. Plus in Krillin's head, he would maybe be able to ask this guy, or King Kai guy, more on what guardianship really means. So it isn't long until Kami and his pupil are teleported to the check-in station, Krillin already booking it off towards Snake Way. Way more cautious than Goku to not have any of those filler scenes of him falling off happening, but an interesting development does happen here. When a certain filler character comes in enticing Krillin with food, since he had been running off just senzu beans with him being not dead and all, with essentially the same similar events happening as the original filler episode, with Princess Snake and her servants using all sorts of tactics to keep the monk from going back to Snake Way. Our main character though, Loki, is a bit more swayed than Goku would have been, Krillin being more anxious around the woman and more of a pushover than the other Z fighters. But I think the events of the filler episode would go slightly different. Krillin's desire to be a protector for everyone on Earth and him having newfound pressure on his shoulders with him being the lead Z fighter right now is what pushes him to escape the illusions of the Snake Woman, being heavily surprised when during their own fight of her true form she ends up displaying power that surpasses his own. Regardless though, I still think the near conclusion of Princess Snake being tangled up in her own true forms ends up still happening. The only difference is that knowing Krillin's character, like with 18 in the canon timeline, he would be able to bring himself to just leave the otherworld monarch alone like that, surprising the Snake servants when he actually goes out of his way to untangle her as she transforms back into base. Being shocked at this, Krillin only nervously stammers out a response that goes along the lines of thanking her for the food and her not being as evil as she seems to be, as he runs back on Snake Way with a full stomach. After recovering a while later, one of the Snake servants quickly shows her master some inside information on this mysterious warrior from Earth, thanks to her whole otherworld connections, with Snake Princess gaining some new interest towards the mark with Apprentice Guardian being highlighted in his profile. The servants do start to murmur to themselves on why their mistress leader is spending a suspicious amount of time trying to know all about this Earthling's background. Anyways, a few months after that interaction and Krillin's self-esteem not really much improving, he finally realizes he's reached his destination, being met with a rude awakening when his body is suddenly met with 10 times more gravity than he's used to, cartoonishly slamming his face on the ground. So when King Kai speed walks on over to find the scene of a short, bald, duck-faced monk with no nose, still having the ability to have a nosebleed, he bursts out laughing immediately. Krillin by default already passing the comedy test for the Kaio, with all of this finally leading to about half a year's worth of training with King Kai, a human being for once in the Dragon Ball timeline learning both the Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb. with Krillin especially being excellent at that technique with his whole prior experience of creating the Destructo Disc. More interesting to me though would be how the relationship between the two develops. I really think it would be better than even what Goku had with the guy in the canon show. For example, just like with Kami, Krillin would be more likely to heed the King Kai's warnings and caution over the Saiyans, in this whole apparent emperor of the universe that controls all of them. King Kai too inquiring on Krillin's new passion too, finally being able to stay all about his job since it's basically been his whole life at this point, even relating with the numerous times he's felt powerless with his position. The whole not being able to interfere with the mortal realm and all. Advising Krillin that a guardian's role of any kind requires someone to lead without always being able to get involved themselves. King Kai just giving a little glimpse of what he has to put up with. The monk getting overwhelmed when he gets a quick glance of the whole north quadrant of the galaxy, really being put into perspective of everything, while he only has to deal with one planet. Surprisingly though, with the same thought process he had after the whole King Piccolo accident, Krillin is just about able to get back on his feet after that vision, knowing if this is the same pressure Goku had to deal with all those times back in OT Dragon Ball, it couldn't hurt him just to be able to handle it this once. The two continue the training as Krillin does what he can to get all insight he can on the other world. Returning back to the Z Fighters around the time of Krillin's departure, Goku with his newfound motivation was just about to consider training his son Gohan, with him being there with when he got that whole rage boost thing. But the Saiyan is a little surprised when Chaozu actually makes the suggestion of the half Saiyan actually being trained by him and Tien. It would work more in his favor for his training if he didn't have to train someone else from the ground up. Plus him low-key seeing Gohan as a good first student to his whole school of psychics that he wanted to start one day. Tien begrudgingly agreeing as well, saying that Goku was the next line of defense behind Krillin, as he then mutters of some other reason wanted to train the young Saiyan himself. Knowing the retired assassin's past, he doesn't dig too deep into it, with him happily obliging, him more worried about honestly having to tell Chi-Chi about this situation first. Focusing more on Goku's view, after the expected screaming and barration he would probably get from Chi-Chi, the Saiyan would go around the globe trying to find training partners to train with him up on Kami's lookout, already being a bit bummed that Piccolo seemed to be lowering his ki on purpose for some reason. All of this culminating with Goku finding and recruiting old allies for the Saiyan invasion, like Yamcha, who for some reason wasn't there for the whole group meetup, and when he curiously asks why, Yamcha just responds with a "it's complicated." The duo then flying over to Korn's tower where they find their third member in Goku's mind, the lazy Ronin himself, Yajirobe. The diet warning clearly trying to do everything possible to avoid putting any type of effort into any type of training, even with it being a direct order from Kami himself. All of this especially irritating Yamcha, who no matter how much he tries to encourage the guy to put some grit into it, the samurai's antisocial behavior still ends up winning out. Or it would be without Goku around. You see, I believe of Goku being around here on Earth this time and technically being Yajirobe's first and I guess kind of only real friend, he would be able to push the swordsman to using more of his high human potential that he has, using all sorts of teasing and testing of pride tactics to get the warrior to actually throw his weight around. Yamcha too would benefit from getting his Turtle School spirit back, especially after hearing that Krillin had even surpassed Goku at some point. He definitely steps up his game. Goku too, while not getting as strong as he would in canon, will definitely have a better synchronicity with the Z Fighters here, since the gap between humans and Saiyans hasn't been made that apparent yet, without him going to King Kai's planet here. Like, just imagine scenes of Yamcha and Goku using the bandit spirit ball technique together for like target practice for Yajirobe's sword skills. I know it's like a little bit of a pretty random dynamic, but that joint would be cool to see that. But those three aren't our only Z Fighters. Shifting to the perspective I'm the most interested in, the new Crane School trio to be more exact. Gohan's reaction to this new training environment is at least a bit more settled than it would be in canon. The half Saiyan already viewed Tien and Chaozu in a positive light because of the whole Raditz situation, but didn't change the fact he still didn't really like fighting all that much in general. This low-key being a difficult hurdle for Tien as an instructor, since fighting has always been his life's passion. So to settle this dispute, Chaozu takes a different approach, instead encouraging Gohan through meditation to use his brain more, since he seemed to be leaning on that as a specialty. With a few first attempts, the bald vampire attempts to communicate with him via telekinesis, and is shocked when after a couple weeks Gohan is able to communicate back with a little bit of strain and awkward pauses. This ends up boosting both warriors' confidence, as Chaozu and Gohan spends extensive time trying to hone in their potential as psychics. This isn't to say Gohan and the Cyclops don't get close either. At some point, the elder martial artist really having a deep one-on-one with the kid, going over his own backstory and the events in OG Dragon Ball, from his teachings of Tao Pai Pai to his desperate attempt to fight King Piccolo. Overall admitting that he doesn't know what kind of conversation his best friend Chaozu had with Krillin at some point, but he definitely got more passionate about life lately, and he wouldn't be lying if he didn't get happy seeing that. Overall, really wanting to pay Master Roshi and Goku's due forward by training Gohan as the next generation of potential Crane students without any of the evil influence going on. This conversation finally kicking off the master student disciples relationship between the two, politely starting to call Tien Master, but still innocently nicknaming his second teacher Mr. Chaozu. So as expected here, Gohan would learn the Dodonpa instead of the Masenko here, all while trying to grow a little bit of psychic proficiency, with the half Saiyan becoming way more disciplined and slightly fonder of fighting in this timeline. There is a consequence of all of this though, with it being pretty clear to me that, Tien's a guy that's less worried about emotions and fighting or said emotions. That dude's a pretty serious guy. I believe Gohan here would have less of a handle on his rage boost than you would have in canon. They tried seeing it as less reliable, preferring to focus on Gohan's base power and technique instead, which may lead to some consequences down the road. I'll be going more over power levels during part 3. Regardless, with the addition of monthly mock tournaments between the two groups of Z fighters to test each other's skill, the Z fighters with an alive Goku are at least getting a bit stronger than they would originally. Gohan's progress of telekinesis being displayed between a spar with his father, him being able to barely stop his kick and deflect it back with a Dodonpa, with even further developments being made in the time skip. But I think I've run my mouth long enough, because we still haven't checked on the ongoings of the now Namekian Piccolo. Through his vague connection with Kami, he was just about to gather the whole training situation with the Z fighters, being especially pressured now to gain his own allies, but his constant meditation had given him at least a vague detail on the story of Garlic and his elder other half. So, a few months later after the Raditz encounter, and using some of his inner dark magic abilities that he got from his father, Piccolo is able to use his evil ki to influence the traveling Makio star to loom towards Earth, where soon enough we're met with the scene of Piccolo meeting up with the movie villain himself, Garlic Jr., along some of his henchmen in the dead of night. Of course, things aren't gonna go so smoothly, both being villains and all. The Krillin with Garlic Jr. finding it ironic that the splitting image of his father's nemesis will put all this effort just to die in this spot today, because no matter what plan to take the Dragon Balls, wish for immortality and take over Asgardian. The sly Namekian just sarcastically states he's gonna have to rethink that notion. The Dragon Balls were inert anyways. His position was probably going to be taken by a bald fighter soon enough, and this planet was going to get invaded by alien monkey people, so it would be better if he just immediately though. The underlings Ginger, Nikki, and Sancho dash forward at the Namekian, preparing to silence the nonsense he was speaking. But with just a full release of his power, he blows the trio away, sternly grunting that, "Did you really think I would come here not prepared?" As the Namekian splits his power into 3 clones that each run the fade with the seasoning named enemies, showing all of his martial arts vigor, as without having to train a Gohan in this timeline, the Namekian needs to be able to grow more into his own warrior. Garlic Jr. realizes this himself when all 3 of them are at near death's door. He didn't want to king the underlings yet though, as he presses the demonic gremlin again about his offer of cooperation. But in response, Garlic Jr. just screams out a transformation, growling that he'll be begging for the great Garlic Jr. soon for more than just cooperation, as the two fly headfirst into a brawl that's pretty high diff, as since they're already both within Raditz's power level range. Climactic battle doesn't go unnoticed. Kami's omnipotence over the earth and Piccolo raising his ki finally alerts the Z fighters of the new Crane School and just Goku arriving at the battlefield. The rival of the group immediately annoys Piccolo as he wished to keep this situation undercover. The Namekian pauses his scruffle to look down and give a death stare towards Goku, Tien, and especially that dang mutant brat that grazed him all those months ago. If he had his way, he would have gotten rid of them first. The young Gohan below isn't much scared here, actually meeting the stare of the Namekian back equally. The Gremlin Garlic Jr. now was about tired about this high-did fight and honestly being ignored, so with a massive raise of his arms, he summons the spiral black hole of the dead zone. And with it being so convenient that all of his potential opponents were all standing within the same vicinity, the Z Fighters, unprepared, already start feeling the pulling force, as even with Chaozu's psychic hold, the squad were slowly being pulled in, including Piccolo himself. Here though, Gohan shows his disciplined growth, as even with his fear, he sinks with Tien to fire a precise Devonpa on Piccolo's hand, while Goku uses a super Kamehameha on the Garlics. All of this loosening the balance of the originator and his enemy, Garlic beginning to scream cartoonishly for someone to close the dead zone, as if his bum self didn't bring it into existence in the first place. But it's already too late. With the last will of pettiness, the Gremlin drags Piccolo onto the dead zone with him, and with a couple moments, all of Earth's enemies disappear, just like that. And Goku in the aftermath being a bit disappointed that Piccolo was really going down the road of his father. The games he had gone really wanted to make him rematch the guy. Tien though sternly grunting that he was glad evil handled itself this time, before giving a thumbs up toward Gohan for a student conquering his fear for just a moment earlier. All of them eventually going back to their normal training routine, accepting Piccolo's disappearance. But if only it was that easy. We transition to the viewing inside the dead zone, truly a whack place to be when nothing but darkness, lifelessness, and demonic energy is all around you. Garlic's henchmen picking up their boss, and as Garlic frustratingly yells and complains about what he should have done and that he should have been crowned guardian a long time ago. By having enough of this man crying, Piccolo grabs the weak Garlic by his neck, barking back why couldn't he just listen to him in the first place. Now they are both stuck in this dead zone, this harsh environment of wait a minute. Harsh environment? Like a light bulb just hit his head. Piccolo could swear during his whole meditation he had a blimp of a memory of an environment just like this. Something very similar. Yes, harsh, grueling, mentally straining on any fighter. Perfect place for a warrior to grow stronger and faster than any place on Earth. Garlic gets a bit scared when a new grin forming on the guy he was just running the ones with begins to happen. With a release of his weighted clothing and a determined glint in his eye, he then firmly states to Garlic that they didn't have time to waste. He knew the demon would need his help in order to escape this dimension anyways. This being the state that we leave the three different sets of warriors all preparing for the inevitable Saiyan invasion. As expected, the two Saiyan paws land on a populous city soon enough after the year's time, revealing the Saiyan Prince Vegeta and his servant Nappa, curiously ready to see what kind of resistance this backwater of our planet will have compared to their usual antics, with a low-class Saiyan and even lower life forms here as their protectors. As this is where I'll be leaving the story off for right now. Yes sir, bro. I told y'all, man, that Garlic setup was gonna have some payoff. Anyways, dog, that's part 2 of What If Krillin Became Kami. My spring semester is finally over, that horrendous thing, and I finally will have more free time during the summer, even though I'm still gonna be taking classes though. Next video I plan to do on here will be the start of the whole Patreon/member exclusive series that I have planned going on. Part 1 will be shown for everyone, but we'll see how it goes from there. I also plan to hop back on my second channel like I mentioned earlier, get that Junk the Game reviews back in the rotation. And that'll be all from me. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts. If you don't got anything to say, comment algorithm fuel just to help it do it out. Have a blessed rest of y'all day, and I'll see y'all next time.